is up? Sexy people of the internet. It is Dave. It is Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. Uh, for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Houston metal crew Oceans of Slumber. The band's new album, Where Gods Fear to Speak, will be released on September 13th on Season of Mist.
You know what the listeners out there are thinking to themselves, Dave?
What was that?
They're thinking that when we get to this review, we've got to ask ourselves one question. Houston, do we have a problem?
Maybe. Who knows?
That's me earning my paycheck for this week. I made you laugh once. Checks in the
please.
mail, I'm assuming, yeah.
Buoyed by the praise of critics and the love of increasingly rabid admirers, Oceans of Slumber proved true to their progressive reputation when they released fifth full-length Starlight and Ash in 2022. Although still palpably drawn from the same well of dark and daring influences that had informed previous records, the new songs were pointedly bereft of the crushing metal tropes and elaborate song structures of old. Instead, Oceans of Slumber stripped things to an ornate and earthy take on gothically inclined songwriting and melancholy modern prog. Starlight and Ash was praised in metal and prog media, but drew the ire of the band's big label paymasters, who were rather unimaginatively hoping for more of the same.
Hold on, wait 1 second here. A record label just wanting the same thing churned out over and over again to make loads of money, even though the artists themselves are, I don't know, feeling stifled, soul crushed, destroyed, having their dreams stripped away from them to make another buck for the man. I've never heard that story before. I think someone should make a movie out of it.
Think so. Reaching an impasse, band and label parted ways, leading to Ocean of Slumber.
Which is a very nice way of, fuck you!
I don't know the fuck what you Sam. Leading to Oceans of Slumber new forged relationship with the notoriously open-minded Season of Mist.
I love how we're throwing shade. We're not casting shade, we're actually physically throwing it. Love it.
Now armed with a brand new studio album, these intuitive radicals have gone where they will be understood. Recorded in Bogota, Colombia in 2023, Where Gods Fear to Speak is a multifaceted entry into Ocean of Slumber's burgeoning legacy. Many of the melodic and textural elements that made Starlight and Ash such a revelation are still present, but Scarborough's brutality and complex cultured arrangements are back with a vengeance. With Cami's astonishing vocal blend of vulnerability and abominable power, these songs are the best possible showcase for a band on an unerring mission to win the world over. A colossus in both conception and execution, Where Gods Fear to Speak eschews the usual modern metal sounds in favour of an overwhelming wall of sound production. This album is a dystopian western or a post-apocalyptic survival movie, somewhere between The Handmaid's Tale, The Dark Tower, and Cormac McCarthy, states drummer Robert Beverly. The whole idea is that Where the Gods Fear to Speak is a movie, and we've written the soundtrack. If the world was taken over, like in the movie The Book of Eli, and Gary Oldman had found the Bible and the true power of it, and he was wielding the power of the Lord over everybody, those people were maybe just into their traditional spiritualism, or people that were not religious at all. They would be the defectors. So the record is written from the viewpoint of the defectors. The ending credits are our version of Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. He wanted to take it back to when the music and movies set the tone for everything. The album was recorded at Audio Vision Studios in Colombia with producer Joe Hamilton at the helm. We did the most extensive pre-production demoing that we've ever done for this record. Everything was finished. The vocal lines were 98% done in advance. Then we got into the studio and I threw curveballs at Cami to piss her off and get her to land these certain vocal sections. There has to be some element of this that is created in the moment. It's not magical otherwise. I did all the synthesizers and orchestrations at home, but then we recorded the rest of it at the studio in Colombia. Both the heaviest and most sophisticated record they have made yet, it covers all bases to deliver an emotional, life-affirming musical journey like no other. Some people will love it, others may not, but what is abundantly clear is that Oceans of Slumber remain a formidable force to be reckoned with, and When Gods Fear to Speak may be their masterpiece. Okay, so we reviewed the 2020 self-titled album, which we both enjoyed. It had the kind of like progressive elements they were known for, but little extreme touches peppered through it. And then one of the other writers at Metal Epidemic reviewed their previous album, Starlight and Ash, which came with a more, I think they classed it Southern Gothic vibe, and kind of less of the heavy elements. Some really cool arrangements on that release, and probably their most accessible to date. Much kind of like shorter songs. I think it was the shortest album they've done. And I liked it. It was different from the self-titled, and I felt a bit more kind of poignant in the vocal delivery as well on the album. It was pretty cool.
You're not the record label though, Dave, and that's not what the record label said. The record label said, "Where's the heavy bangers?" Yeah. Which seems weird to me. Like, generally at record labels like that, you've made something more commercial and marketable. Thank you. Thank you so much.
What?
Like, I'm sure like Roadrunner were like, see when Slipknot released Iowa, I'm sure Roadrunner were like that. Oh yeah, we've got to market people. Like, oh shit, that sounds easy.
So, Where Gods Fear to Speak. So for this album has brought back the length, clocking in at a 56 minutes.
It's not all about the length, Dave.
Well, some might say. Also brings back the heavy.
Oh.
Which we are introduced to very early on.
Yes, pretty much at the start.
The title track opening the album. In a very like slow and brooding doom-like kind of way. And then it starts to get more extreme, picks up a bit of speed. It also reintroduces the kind of deathy kind of backing vocals, or so I thought it was deathy backing vocals.
Dave.
I'm thinking one of the guitarists, seeing it was the really deep, guttural kind of vocals. They were done by other band members in the past. Oh, how I was wrong, Duncan.
Amateur.
So
You're
wrong.
not using the good headphones.
It's
clearly a female vocal.
I didn't get that at all.
It's clearly a female vocal.
And then I watched one of their videos on YouTube, one of the tracks, and I was like, wait a minute. That's not one of the band members. That's Callie, the front woman that's doing all the guttural stuff. So she's
I
basically...
think that's the curveball that was thrown at her in the studio,
probably.
where she's like, I've recorded all my vocals. This is the most melody I've ever been able to cram into it. And they're like, bear with us here. Guttural growls.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? They're like, just try it.
So she has now gone from purely clean vocals on previous albums to giving us like full-on death growls on this one, which I was not expecting at all from Cami. And like for like our first attempt, yeah, they're pretty good.
Not an easy thing. Like, we've done, like, you've tried these, right?
Oh yeah, like
you've been in a band with me, right?
Yeah.
And some people can do it, right?
Yeah.
Some people can like invert their voice and make it hit a register very, very deep and very, very low, and that growl, that rumbly growl tone that comes out, very easy to do.
Yeah.
Other people, as soon as they do it, it comes out of this. Like, you're just like if you were playing a zombie in The Walking Dead, it kind of comes out like that. That's what comes. Yeah, like, so what I'm saying is, like, not easy to do when you've been practicing. Even harder to do when, one, your voice register doesn't sit there, and two, that voice register is money.
Yeah.
You can fuck your voice. You can horribly damage your vocal cords by doing that, especially when you sound like her on the other register. And I'm one of these guys that advocate for, if you can sing, why do the screamy stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you think like that? Why do that? But
yeah. The mention of the curveball could make sense. I'll come back to the vocals, but on this track, I thought like there's clearly layers there. Okay, it's not just one vocal recording. There is other vocals layered onto it to give it a bit of heft, which is fine. And I liked the register of it. I thought it was cool, and I thought it worked on that track. I was like, yeah, that's cool. That opening track is a bit of a kind of tone setter. It's progressive. It's got flourishes of extreme metal in the guitars and drums, where it does go a bit more kind of deathy. but they give you plenty of variance in tempo, and they lean into kind of some slow kind of doomier parts as well. Loved the kind of 80s synth that kind of ended the track, which after reading the press release made sense. There's a kind of dystopian post-apocalyptic kind of theme to this as well. Run from the Light follows that. And it gets a little more adventurous. Kind of adds in a little bit more of the goth, and a bit more almost kind of like melodic death metal in places. I didn't love this track, if I'm honest. It had some cool ideas, but it left me a little bit underwhelmed. Vocally, I didn't love the mix of styles. There's a kind of operatic vocal that comes in that I'm assuming is Cami that's added in. It's got kind of gothic kind of tendencies. I can see why they went in that direction. Just it wasn't a bad vocal recording or performance. It just wasn't really my taste. The style of it. Also, there's a male backing vocal on this track as well, and it sounds very odd. Both in the recording of it and the kind of layering of it as well. Now, I know there's guest vocals on that track, so it might be the guest vocals, possibly, I'm not sure. They may have also been recorded elsewhere, and that's why there's a slight inconsistency there.
Yeah.
Felt a little rough, I'm not going to lie. And that track was a little bit of a step down for me from the opener, if I'm totally honest. We then get the longest track in the album, Don't Come Back from Hell Empty-Handed, which clocks in about 8.5 minutes. And it's a slower, kind of a heavier, like ballad type track, which Oceans of Slumber do like incredibly well. They've always been good at delivering those big, weighty tracks with lots of emotion and soulful vocals. This has all the traits that you'd expect from the band. It's very like ebb and flowy. Big piano piece in the middle. It does also get faster and heavier, so there's variation there. And again, I liked it for the most part. Again, some weird production choices for me. There's a guitar solo even cuts in just after the first kind of extreme section of the song. And it sounds weird. Like it sounds like something that's been recorded on like an analog 8-track or something. Like it's very hissy and quite thin sounding, and it felt completely out of place. It totally brought me out of the track. I was like, what the hell was going on there? Thankfully, the track ends really well. They bring back the synths. Cami hit some really nice kind of sweet spots in the vocal, and the track gets much heavier. It feels like a proper like climax to the end of the track. And there's like a lot of those kind of death growls again at the end, which sounded good as well. To be honest, as the album goes on, vocally I feel it's a little bit hit and miss. Just when I think they've got it nailed, another track comes in and it kind of does a 180 on the vocals. Poem of Ecstasy brings back Cami's again, more the kind of death growl type thing again. And again, just for me, it just kind of sits a little bit oddly in the mix. It kind of sounds like she's underwater almost, and just sounds a little bit inconsistent with the rest of the vocals on that track. The track itself is fine, nothing hugely memorable, but it has some kind of meaty parts to it, some cool switch ups. But I'm going to come on to the memorability now, as I just mentioned there. This album is just... There's nothing hugely memorable about it. Compared to the self-titled and Starlight and Ash, I found those albums much more memorable overall. I feel like this album has some interesting ideas musically. There's plenty of changes, there's plenty of dynamic shifts, so there's a lot of the arrangements, there's a lot went into the thought of the arrangements, but I didn't finish the album and like start humming choruses or thinking of little bits and pieces out of it. It didn't really stick with me afterwards. I would say the dual vocals that are on Prayer, which I think was Fernando from Moonspell, I think was the guest on that one, sounded great. I thought Cami and his vocal, the chemistry there was brilliant. The raspy tone during the heavy parts were excellent as well. And that track ended and felt more kind of like noteworthy. There was something about it that kind of stayed with you. The Impermanence of Fate, which is I think the second to last track.
Second to last, yeah.
Had a cool kind of like slow burn build into something pretty ferocious, plenty of blast beats and that kind of like fast tremolo, kind of almost like Black and Death guitars. Again, the death metal vocals were just okay. I think, you know what the issue is? I think if Cami wasn't such an incredible melodic vocalist, the guttural vocals maybe wouldn't sound so far apart. But they just don't feel like the same quality as the cleans, unfortunately. There's also the ending, the last track, which is a cover.
Chris Isaacs,
Wicked Game
like,
by Chris
you
Isaacs.
honestly, like, you have no idea. I'm a fucking hardcore mark for Chris Isaacs.
Oh,
like, honestly, I love that. I unabashedly love this song, right? So,
like, I'm always wary when I see a cover at the end of an album. I'm like, oh fuck, what is going to go on here? Like, and I love the original, like Chris Isaac songs, like what, 1989 or something came out.
Yeah.
And it's been covered a lot, that song. In this case, I didn't actually mind it as much as I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to hate it, to be honest. They've pitched it as like an end credits kind of song.
100%, yeah.
So I was like, okay, you know what? The stripped back kind of minimal approach to this actually kind of works with the idea of like, this is the soundtrack for the movie and this is the end credits. That kind of works. So I didn't actually hate the cover at all. Overall, though, the album is kind of a mixed bag for me. I like the mix of like soulful kind of gothic melody. I love how they've merged again a lot more kind of aggressive kind of death metal characteristics. I feel it's lost a bit of a hook. I didn't find this nearly as memorable or kind of catchy as some of their previous albums. The dystopian thing as well, like, I'm not sure how well that landed.
Let me put it this way. So I obviously don't read the PR, right? So I didn't have any context on the concept album that they've been put here. Had I not seen the album artwork, and you say that to me, I don't know if I would have got any of that.
No. It's weird. It's like, it's there, like the end of the first track, you get those kind of 80s synths, and you hear it a couple of times, but I just didn't feel like it really kind of worked as a concept. It just felt like an excuse to kind of use some synths on the album, to be honest. I've also mentioned, I think this album has a few strange production issues that just take me out of the album altogether. I was really surprised that I read they'd spent like loads of time on the production on this one. Some of it sounds fine, like there's parts of this that sound absolutely fine, and then other parts feel like they've been recorded elsewhere or produced elsewhere. There's a bit of a mismatch in certain areas where it just doesn't quite sync together. So yeah, I was hoping for more on this one, if I'm honest. I was a fan of the band on the previous two albums. This one, not so much. Where are you landing this? What do you think of this one? Am I totally off? Am I on this one?
No, this is a wildly inconsistent album.
All right,
like
okay.
From start to finish. I don't think the heavy stuff is good. Like, I think all the stuff that they do which doesn't involve heavier elements is actually where and the problem is it's the vocals. Not that that's the problem. The vocals are so exceptional on this album, whether they're memorable or not. They're delivered in such a way that she has like so much soul and passion in her voice that whenever like a heavier guitar riff comes in for me, it actually takes me out of it. It kind of makes me think it's the same way, and I'm going to upset some people, it's the same way that kind of later day Seven Dust annoys me. Because you hear LeJean sing and you're like, that voice is fucking makes so much money.
Yeah.
So much money.
Yeah.
On that voice. And then in the background we've got you're like, that's just shite. Generic music in the background, amazing vocals.
Yeah.
Kind of feel the same way here. Actually, the quieter moments on the album are actually where, to me, I could feel like the hairs on my arms start to stand up with that kind of haunting tone that she has and she brings. I'm glad you mentioned about the production.
Right.
because I was wondering if this was self-produced, because it did feel like self-produced maybe during COVID. So like I'll be honest, I forgot we'd reviewed a previous album from them, so I just assumed they'd been working on this for years in 17 different studios. There is a disconnect in here, and the master doesn't smooth that out, and the mixing doesn't smooth it out either. So there are elements that sound weirdly either out of time or out of place. Now, those might be part of the concept that they're going for, that kind of dystopian theme.
Yeah.
I wasn't there when they wrote it. I wasn't there when they mixed or mastered it, so I can't make comment on it. But to me, it did sound noticeably different. And as a result, it does kind of, when your ears are attuned to listen to music as much as ours are now these days, those sort of things are the things that you hyper focus on, and you forget to listen to everything else that's happening. And it became weirdly distracting. Also, I think this album was far too long. This is like 56 minutes, right? And there's a couple of tracks here that run way past merit as well in terms of their length, in that I've got everything from this song, and repeating this chorus another 2 times doesn't do anything for me. And it's not to say they're bad. They're not bad songwriters. This is desperately crying out for more hooks, though. Like, you have a voice like that, I should be singing these songs in the shower a week from now. And they're not really there. Interestingly enough, the only song that I end up singing after the 3 listens that I've done on this is Wicked Game, a song that I was singing before I listened to the album. I don't like bands that close with a cover, right? Well, I don't like, don't like albums that close with a cover, because it's going to work one of 2 ways for you, right? Either your cover is not going to be good, and I'm going to be angry because you just ruined a song that I love. Or it's going to be good, and I'm going to end up listening to the original afterwards because you've reminded me how good the song is. And that's kind of where this, I'd like tons of Chris Isaac after this. Don't you want the baby? Like, I just love the guy. Love him. Just another, and we thought we were going to get through a whole week here with a Twin Peaks reference. Fire Walk With Me. Chris Isaacs, right at the beginning, disappears. Like nowhere. He's an agent, he just vanishes. So I'm not, I can't say I'm a huge fan of the band. I did like the previous album, and I checked back, my review for that 2 albums ago was 4. So I look at that, and then I listen to this, and I think to myself, listening to this album, would I give it a 4? And when you come to ask me what my score is, the answer is not going to be yes. I think this is a step down, based on, it's the first album on their new record label, and their PR is basically saying this is where they finally get what they want to do, or this is where they're allowed the freedom. I would say sometimes, and I don't want to be the dickhead that says this, sometimes record labels are not wrong, right? Sometimes record labels are good at, they've got all the figures, the numbers, the demographics, the results, the sales, and all the rest, and they can say, this sound does better than this sound. Now, artistically, I know why you would rage against that. I would rage against that. I don't like people telling me what I should be doing. I kind of want to make my own way in there. I think in the pursuit of trying to meet a middle ground between what they did previously, which they clearly got success from, and retaining that older sound, I think there's something lost there. And what I would say to them is commit to one or the other until you manage to blend them both together. Because at the moment it is one song connected for me, 2 songs didn't connect for me, one song connected, 2 songs didn't. So yeah, her voice is incredible. There's no getting, like, ultimately I'm always going to come back with, like, she can continue doing this, she'd do a million other things and she'd be great at it. So not as good as I hoped it was going to be.
So scores: Oceans of Slumber, Where Gods Fear to Speak. I scored the self-titled a 4 out of 5 as well. I don't think musically this is on par with that. Musically, I think this is a 3 out of 5. However, add in the production, I'm going 2.5, I'm afraid. Some of it works, and some of it's just kind of messy to me, to be honest. What about yourself?
I don't feel nearly as harsh now. I'm coming in 2.5 as well. I thought I was undercutting everyone. I don't often give out anything below a 3, to be honest. It's very rare. Our quality control on what we can talk about tends to be relatively good, in that very few albums that are likely to score low with us from what we've heard in advance is going to close that one. But this is one of those ones where I was almost willing it through its entirety to do, like, to give me that one song where I'm like, oh, this is a 3-star album, and it's not here.
Where Gods Fear to Speak. It's out on 13th September on Season the Mist. There's links below to the band, to the Bandcamp link as well. You hear all the singles on there. Go and have a listen, see what you think. Let us know your thoughts on it. Have a listen to the album. Stick your comments below. Happy to hear your opinions on it. That's our review. Thanks for checking out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.